Can you hear me now? না, এটা তো আমি ফোনে বলছি। আমার ফোনটা মিউট করা আছে, so you can hear me, I suppose. But I cannot hear anything, জানো? আমি কিছু বুঝতে পারছি না। Yeah, now it's okay. Natasha, is it all right?
I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
So I think we'll
You are,
start the
Natasha.
session because the speaker is already there. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So good afternoon, everybody. So as we all know, health is our biggest asset. The food we eat should bring us both health and happiness. So we are here today to learn tips about maintenance of good health, for which we have among us an expert from the field of nutrition. I request Dr. Ivy Day, Associate Professor in Department of Education, Senior faculty member of our college and IQAC member, to kindly say a few words about today's program. So I welcome you, Ivy ma'am. Could you kindly introduce today's session?
Yes, Natasha, thank you. Good afternoon, all of you. Welcome to the webinar today, national webinar on Eat Right, Bite by Bite. Gokhale Memorial Girls College is a premier educational institution exclusively for women, established in 1938, located in the heart of the city. It is just opposite the SSKM Hospital. Now, Department of Clinical Nutrition and Dietetics was established in 1994 with an aim to educate and provide skills to women in nutrition field so that they can become self-dependent individuals. Now, the current HOD is Dr. Gautam Mahata, head of the Department of Chemistry, and faculty in charge is Srimati Pratasha Agarwal. The Students' Welfare Committee of our college is a statutory body that works for the well-being of students. Its members include Dr. Shurmila Sharkar, she's the convener, Dr. Shurmi Chakraborty, Dr. Shurmishtha Mondol Chaudhuri, Dr. Moushumi Mukherjee, and Srimati Pratasha Agarwal. Dietetics Day is celebrated on 10th of January every year to disseminate nutrition education and information on importance of making informed food choices and developing sound eating and physical activity. The Students' Week is an initiative of the government of West Bengal in order to celebrate Students' Week and Dietetics Day jointly. And this webinar has been organized for today's session. We have Ms. Ritika Shamaddar, Chief Clinical Nutritionist and Regional Head of Department of Clinical Nutrition and Dietetics of Max Healthcare, Delhi, as our guest speaker. Welcome you, ma'am. With an extensive experience in the field of nutrition and dietetics spanning over a period of 28 years, Ms. Shamaddar is also a certified sports nutritionist from International Sports Science Association, California, USA. She's a trained bariatrics nutritionist from Herman Memorial Hospital, Houston, USA. She's a certified diabetes educator as well. She is FODMAP certified from Monash University. She's also a certified LLL ESPEN, that is clinical care nutrition. And she has a lot of awards and recognition to her credit. Some of them are Healthcare Changemakers Award, Rising Star for Excellence in Healthcare, which she received in 2023. She was awarded the Excellence in Nutrition Innovation IAPEN Quality Awards in 2023 as well. She was also awarded the Golden Aim Awards for Excellence in Leadership in Healthcare. It is the Most Preferred Dietitian Award, Sports Nutrition and Critical Care Nutrition 2021. She was awarded Excellence in Dietetics, Informatics, and Digitalization. Uh, mm, Another award was the Certificate of Appreciation for the Contribution in the Field of Dietetics by Lady Irwin and Max by Lady Irwin College and Max Healthcare for delivering an outstanding service. She has co authored a number of research activities, articles, and written chapters in books of nutrition. Her professional membership, or she is affiliated to as a Joint Secretary, Delhi Chapter IDA in 2019, IAPA in India, NEC member, Integrated Health member of IFSO. She's also a member of ESPEN, European Society of Parent, Parenteral and Enteral Nutrition, and she's also a member Obesity Surgery Society of India and Nutrition Society of India. So basically what we understand is that food is just not for sustenance, but it is also to keep us healthy and fit. Over to you, Pratasha. Thank you so much. Pratasha, it's over to you.
I think there is some connectivity issue which I can see. So, should I start?
Ma'am, yes, please do start.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
first and foremost, a very, very warm welcome from very, very chilly and cold Delhi here. The minimum degree yesterday night was about 6 degrees, and today at the moment it's about 10 degree, even in the at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's very, very cold in Delhi. So, sending warm greetings to all of you and wishing you all a very, very happy New Year. Thank you so much for those kind introduction, Dr. Day, and of course Pratyasha, who's been, of course, coordinating with me. A very, very privilege of mine to be talking to the august audience. And what I get to know from her is that I think they're all students. Some of them, of course, are dietetic students, and I think the others from the various fields doing their graduation. So, well, I think nutrition, yes, is very, very important and a core part. And in today's day and life, I think we are all talking about prevention more than cure. Though I work in a hospital, and by the time I interact with my patients, they are probably in the curative stage. But definitely, budding students and the young generation needs to take this information about nutrition to the community so that we are more focusing on the prevention rather than on the curative aspect of the diet which it has on the disease, etc. So what I will do is, and also, so I'm just sharing my screen, and while I'm doing that, it was very, very interesting. I thought, why not have some kind of a interaction with the students before I start with my talk. And what I saw was, I'm sorry, I'm not able to, though my slides are open, but I am not able. Yeah, I've just seen it. Yeah. So I thought I will share a Google form just to know the nutrition awareness of the students. And it was very, very overwhelming to see. I got almost about 225 responses as of now. And it was very, very nice to see that the students or whoever had filled up the form are highly informative about what is good nutrition for them. And of course, most of them were right. So I'm very, very happy to know that the audience who's listening over here is already quite educated. So as I will be discussing the responses as we go with our with my session, so that it becomes more interesting. And also, what I would really like is that you are more, I would really be happy if you can make it like an interactive session, and I would really like all of you to pen down your queries, because of course I will be talking a little bit about the importance of nutrition and what are the simple tips which we can just incorporate into our daily lifestyle. But more important than that, I would really love to answer some of the queries all of you have, so you can probably write down in the chat box, and probably I'll be more than happy to take these post the session. I hope my slide is visible now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
your slide is visible.
Okay.
Ma'am, can I
So,
just make an announcement? Actually, I was having some technical issue. Can I just
oh,
make an announcement here? Yes, ma'am.
yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to say that all participants are requested to please post their queries in the chat box throughout the session, which will be taken up at the end of the session. And you only those participants will be provided with e-certificate who attend the entire program and fill up the feedback form provided correctly. Thank you, ma'am. Please continue.
Okay. So, as I just said in the beginning, that eating healthy is, of course, a key to everybody's healthy lifestyle. There's a very, very old saying which we say that you are what you eat. And I think over the centuries, this statement still holds a very, very prominent space, because we all know that whatever be the condition, if you're eating well healthy and living a healthy lifestyle, you would be healthy at the end of the day. So let's discuss that. How do we get to know whether we are eating healthy, or what are the aspects which are which will let us know whether we are healthy or not? I think one of the most important criteria for knowing whether you're healthy or not is to know your BMI. So these are in fact what we say are the four important parameters each one of us sitting at our home should be able to define whether we are healthy or not. So first being your BMI, which I will just discuss. Know your waist circumference, which is very important, and I think all of us know our waist circumference. And also equally important is to know your body fat percentage. Now, how do I calculate my BMI? So in fact, I had this one of the questions where I had asked everybody to fill up their BMIs. And interestingly, what I found that almost 47% of the people had a BMI which was less than 22.9, which is of course very, very good BMI. So I would say really the major chunk of the population who's listening to this webinar is very healthy. Only about 27% of the people had a BMI which was more than 25, and of course a small section which was more than 30. Very easy to calculate your BMI. So I think the first responsibility of ours is, when we are in the community, is that we should be able to educate each one of us to calculate our BMI and start worrying the moment it is beyond 25. So that's one of the first criteria to know whether you're healthy or not. The second important criteria, and in fact more important than the BMI, is to know your waistline, because as Indians specifically, we are more prone to the lifestyle disorders like diabetes, hypertension, chronic heart diseases, etc. And one of the precipitating factors is more of adiposity, which what it means is more of the fat around your stomach. So every one of us should know what your waistline is. So if your waistline is more than, for men, if it is more than 36-inch, very easy, we all buy our trousers. So as a man, if I'm going and buying a trouser which is 38 or 40 inches, I should start worrying. And as an adult woman, if I'm buying a trouser which is more than 32-inch, I should start worrying. So these are very, very simple things, but goes a long way in probably actually telling you right now whether someone would become prone to diabetes or heart disease or the obesity onset chronic diseases later on in life. The third important is knowing your body fat. I thought of including this slide because I think most of the youngsters would be going to gym. And it is, again, when you enter a gym, the first thing they do is do your body fat percentage, and you get that slip of paper which tells you your body fat. Start reading that. That's very, very important. Again, the slide looks a little complicated, but for the general population, what you have to know that if you are a woman, your body fat percentage should always be less than 30% of your total weight, which means if I am around 60 kgs, my body fat should be less than 20 kgs or around 17 or 18 kgs. Similarly, if I'm a man, my body fat percent has to be less than 20%. So whatever your weight, the fat should not be more than 20%. So even if your BMI is absolutely fine, you're very lean and thin and have a nice waist circumference, but if your body fat percentage is more than what I have just told you, again, we become prone to the lifestyle diseases like your heart disease and diabetes, etc., later on in life. So these are very, very important indicators. And I thought, because of course you are all in the college and you have families at home, so these are very, very important factors which I think we are trying to now communicate to the community as a whole, that the moment you feel that if these are some of the factors which are a little high, that means, as I said, if your waist circumference is high, if your triglycerides, which is a parameter of the blood parameters, is a little high, more than 150, if somebody has fasting sugar which is more than 100, if somebody's blood pressure is more than 130/85, there should be a trigger that this is called a metabolic syndrome. And if detected at this point of time, it is completely reversible. And the only way you can do it is by eating healthy and leading a healthy lifestyle. So this is not a disease, but this is a stepping stone to the disease. And if we can detect the community at this stage, probably the number of people reaching the hospital would be much, much less. So what do I do? So we've just discussed about how do I know whether I'm healthy and all, and what are the important indicators. Now that I've known what is my weight, what is my body fat, how do I make sure that I get them into the right parameters? So following these simple healthy lifestyles would help us. I'm sure all of you, and I think some of the students are from nutrition, so I assume that you would know most of it. But yeah, sometimes coming from an expert just reinforces the fact that these are very, very simple things which, if incorporated into your lifestyle on a daily basis, will actually help you to lead a healthy life. So first, we just discussed get your weight right, get smart about nutrition, and that's what we're going to talk about. Cut down on the salt and sugar, the two major culprits in the Indian diets. Get moving. I am going to talk a lot about your how much of exercise, how to do it, and of course getting your regular health checkup. Not so much in the early age while you're in the college, but at least the moment we step into our 40s, that's the time we should all get a yearly health checkup, again for the simple reason, so that we can be with the preventive aspect, we can actually cure ourselves rather than getting into a disease later. So when we say let's get smart about nutrition, I call these my 6 or 7 very, very important points, which of course, if followed to the T, will really help you be very, very healthy. The first is, of course, start the day right. It is very, very important, and especially for students who are going to the colleges, children who are going to schools, people who leave home to go to the workplace. It is important that you start the day right by eating a healthy breakfast. I know during COVID, intermittent fasting became a huge it became a huge diet and everybody was following it. But remember, if you get up late, you can start your day late. But if you get up early and leave for work, your brain needs a constant supply of energy because it does not store much of energy. And hence, you need to start your day right by eating a healthy breakfast. Again, if you eat a good breakfast, your metabolism is much stronger, much higher. So you'll be able to lose weight much faster. Also, what you eat in the breakfast is very, very important. So what we actually say is that in your breakfast should be one which should be the heaviest meal of the day, because that will give you the sustained energy to probably run through the day and study during the college or in your school times. The second important thing is, of course, especially for the youngsters, where are we going wrong? So it's not about the meals which we are taking. In fact, Indian meals are considered to be a very, very healthy meal because we have a rice and roti and dal and sabzi, which is a very healthy meal. Where do we go wrong? We go wrong in opting for the refined carbohydrates. So specifically say no to the 5 whites in our diet: breads, biscuits, maida, noodles, and momos. These are the 5 biggest culprits in our diet. So if you can really move them out from your diet, half the battle is already won. So it's very, very important to opt for the whole grains. And I know because, whenever there's nothing else, in the morning when you're rushing for college, there's nothing, probably you just pick up 2 slices of bread. During the day, when you're very hungry, probably a packet of biscuits, or from pick up some noodles from the roadside vendors, even a momos for that matter. And even in the evening, most of us, when we are having our tea and all, we usually opt for biscuits. Remember, those are the refined carbohydrates, or what we call the maida. That is the biggest culprit in our diet. The next important is, of course, fiber. And I was again very, very happy to see the responses which I got, that in fact, everybody had written very nice answers on the types of fiber which we get from our diet. So most of you, 100% of you had given right responses in terms of fruits and the vegetables and the whole grains being a very, very good source of fiber. But what is important is how much do we need it? That is where we are actually lacking behind. Right now, speaking to you, it's very chilly here in Delhi. I have not even consumed a single fruit since the morning, and it's almost ending of the day. So we do know about it, that it's a very good source of fiber and antioxidants and vitamins, but seldom do we actually make up for the amount which we are supposed to have. So how much do we need? We need half a kilo of fruits and vegetables every day. If you can actually have that much of fruits or vegetables, whichever you are more you have more liking for, that actually gives you your fiber. The other important thing, which is very important, and in fact, even our Prime Minister is talking a lot about it, is go local and go seasonal. Always remember, whenever you pick up a seasonal fruit or a vegetable, one, the nutrition quantity is the maximum. So, for example, if I'm having an apple right now, I'm getting the maximum benefit because it is at its peak, the ripeness is at its peak. Second, because it is it is available in this season, the cost is minimum, so I can probably afford more quantity of it. And third, if you have your local fruits and vegetables, the body accepts it much better. So sitting here, I have quinoa. It's not like it's not according to my palate and taste. I might have it for its nutritional value, but probably it's not affecting my health as much as probably if I had a bowl of dalia. So always go for something which is local and seasonal, because you will get the maximum benefits out of it. Now, also we need to understand, because there's so much of talk about fiber, and as most of you had rightly said, that oats is a good fiber, vegetables, fruits are a very good fiber, your whole grains are a big fiber. Remember, there are two types of fiber, and especially people who have diabetes and heart disease and blood pressure, they should be taking a fiber which is called the soluble fiber, which of course is available in vegetable to a certain amount, but is maximum available from your grains, meaning your whole grains. So that's the reason why, of course, last year was the International Year of Millets, where we talked so much about bajra, ragi, and your jowar, etc. But remember, they are the ones, the fiber in them is the soluble fiber. Anybody having oats is excellent, because it will actually help them to reduce their cholesterol level, get their sugars under control, the BP gets under control. So there are different types of fiber. So what I want to convey to the masses, have all the fruits and vegetables, but also make sure that you're having whole grains. That means your whole dals, a lot of your ragi, bajras, and oats, etc., because they give you your whole soluble fiber. The next important is, of course, your proteins. India being a vegetarian population, I know in Bengal, most of you would be consuming non-veg, and I'm sure the fish is an integral part of your diet. But from where I am speaking, that is from northern India, 80 to 90% of the population is vegetarian. And that is where we really have to struggle with the sources of proteins. So protein, again, there was this question, and a lot of you had answered absolutely correctly, that when we talk about the sources of protein, cereals, or what we call the anaj, is a very, very moderate source of protein. And the good vegetarian sources of protein is, of course, your pulses and your milk products. So make sure, if somebody is a vegetarian, every meal should have a dal, which is very important, your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If somebody is a non-vegetarian, you probably can opt for the eggs and the chicken and interchange it with your dals once in a while. But remember, we need a protein in every meal, and that's what, we've started with we have the protein week, which is being celebrated in the month of July, and then we also talk a lot about the protein intake, because somehow down the line people have this notion that too much of protein damages your kidney and is not good, especially for people who become a little aged. But that is a complete myth. Remember, till the time you're taking it from the natural sources, it would not affect your kidney. Second, as we age, remember, sarcopenia sets in. That means post 40, every decade we lose about 8 to 10% of our muscle mass. So in fact, as we age, we really need to take more of proteins, preferably from the natural sources, and not depend upon the protein supplements, which of course is given to a certain category of patients who have probably had undergone a surgery, or to certain sports people who requirements are much higher. But if you can meet your requirements of daily proteins from the natural sources, that is considered to be the best way. um, I just heard while Dr. Day was introducing that it's a girls' college. And I presume most of the audience is ladies over here. So I want to really talk about the importance of two important nutrients, which is iron and calcium. Remember, almost 50 to 60% of the population, even today, is deficit in iron, especially the ladies. And simple dietary changes can actually give you good amounts of iron, and you really don't need to depend on any of the supplements. One, of course, we all think that iron is only required is for your hemoglobin and the red color in your blood. Remember, even if you have these symptoms of extreme tiredness, lack of energy, irritability, or are not able to even concentrate in your studies, it might be just iron deficiency as nothing else. Of course, I know in Bengal everybody has very good hair, but one of the important nutrients for hair is iron. So iron has multiple functions. It is available widely, but of course, because of lack of knowledge, we are not able to probably get enough sources of iron. Of course, the non-vegetarian sources are the best sources of iron. So you will have to make sure, if you're a non-vegetarian, make sure you take a lot of irons rich foods, whether it's your egg, chicken, fish, etc. For the vegetarians, of course, your millets, that means your bajra, ragi and all, are very good. Your dals are a good sources of iron. Your nuts like almonds and all are very good. And certain fortified foods, and also your khajur and the raisins, etc., are good sources of iron. But remember, in fact, I had this question and I was very happy to see that almost 87% of the respondent had written it correctly, that the important nutrient which is required for iron absorption is vitamin C. So I presume that you all know about it, that vitamin C is very important. And that's the reason why traditionally, when you used to have a bowl of sprouts, your mother used to always squeeze in a little lemon juice into your sprouts. Even when we have poha now, we always squeeze in a little lemon juice, because it enhances the absorption of iron. I know a lot of people have this pati lebu, and they squeeze it into their dals, and when they're having the rice and dal, which is a very very good way of enhancing the iron absorption. Similarly, we have something called the inhibitors, and this is one of the reasons why the iron is not getting absorbed. One is caffeine. Too much, though, of course, in the response which I had given, most of you were only having 1 or 2 cups of coffee, which, of course, I would not believe 100%. But caffeine is one of the major inhibitors of iron absorption, which means probably if you are having a very healthy breakfast or lunch, but if you're sipping tea, coffee with it, or having a cola with it, you are not able to absorb that iron. So especially people who have iron deficiency, please make sure that you are not taking tea, coffee, or aerated drinks with your meals, because that inhibits it. Also, calcium and iron inhibit each other. That means if you're taking, most of us, if we are being told to take supplements, what we do is we pump in all the supplements with our breakfast and a glass of milk. So if you're taking calcium and iron together, none of them is getting absorbed. So always take your calcium supplement in the morning and your iron supplement post mid-morning or post lunch, and not with your breakfast. So those are very, very two simple things. If you do it, your iron absorption will definitely get enhanced. Calcium is again a very, very important nutrient, especially for the woman. And we only get to realize it once we've reached our menopause. But remember, what you reap at the time of your adolescence is what you will get the benefits post menopause. So it's very important that right now, especially the children who are the students who are in the age of 20, 21, etc., should really work hard on their calcium. We need a good amount of calcium, which is almost 1,000 milligrams. And of course, sadly, Asian population are more prone to osteoporosis. If you have a family history, obviously the chances of getting osteoporosis or weakened bone is much more. And also people who do not exercise, because when you don't exercise, the calcium is not absorbed into your bones. So the density becomes very less. And hence, whatever you do, later on, you land up with osteoporosis. So during his adolescence and early childhood is the time where you really need to focus on your calcium intake. Now, what is very important about calcium is that it is not just calcium which helps you to make your bone strong. There are multiple essential other nutrients which actually help you for your absorption. So one is vitamin D, one is your omega-3 or essential fatty acids, and one is your magnesium. In fact, nowadays whenever the supplements also are available are usually enhanced with all these, but it is very, very important that you make sure that you have all these three important nutrients if you want your bones to be strong. So calcium, vitamin D, and of course your magnesium will make your bones stronger. One thing about vitamin D is, of course, sun is the best source. So, especially for students, I want to emphasize, please make sure that you are out in the sun specifically for half an hour to 45 minutes every day. You really don't need to be looking up at the sun, but even if you're out in the open, so in the morning, if you're going out for a jog, or in the morning, if you're walking across to your college, or even during the breaks, if you're outside, your absorption of vitamin D is much better. The second important source, again, I think we had this question, and again, 100% of you had answered it correctly, that the nuts and seeds, the milk, and of course, your fish oils are the best sources of vitamin D, but also egg yolk is a very good source of vitamin D. So whenever you're having an egg, please make sure that you have the whole egg with the yolk to get the maximum benefit of that, of all the nutrients which it has. Oil is, of course, a very, very controversial topic. And I just wanted to emphasize over here, especially for the young students, that we call them the good, bad, and ugly. Enough has been talked about the good and the bad, but nobody talks about the ugly. So I will only emphasize on the ugly, which is your trans fat. So remember, every time when you are eating a patty or roadside momos, or probably not momos but your noodles, or even if you are having those tikkis, etc., remember the oil which is being used, because the same oil gets heated again and again, it gets completely converted into trans fats. So that oil is the most toxic fat, and it is only through awareness to the public can we really reduce the intake of trans fats. So which, because trans fats increases your bad cholesterol, lowers your good cholesterols, is the cause of a lot of cancers and blocks the arteries. So it is very, very important that you make sure that you are not using trans fats. How do we get trans fats? Moment you heat and reheat the oil again and again, the good oil also gets converted into trans fat. So we might even have trans fats at home, because when we cook the oil and we, whatever oil is left over, we again reheat, like you're frying your puris or pakoras, or your alus, etc., you probably might be consuming even trans fats at oil. So deep fried oil and using the oil again and again is something which is the cause for your trans fats. And these are the three biggest villains of oil, which actually converts the most healthiest of the oil into a trans fat: heat, light, and air. So if you heat the oil too much, it gets converted. If the oil is kept in open light, like outside near the windows, over a period of time, oxidation of the this thing has happened. And also, if the oil is kept open, not in a airtight jar, even that converts your oil into a trans fat. So again, these are simple things. I think most of us overlook it, but in the kitchen, make sure that when you keep your oil, it should be in an airtight container. It should be kept inside the container, inside a cupboard, and it should be away from the gas, because that area has a lot of heat, and that over a period of time can convert your healthy oils into unhealthy. There was one question on snacking, because I can understand as students, you are all the time on the go, and snacking becomes a very, very important or integral meal of your part of your meal in the whole day. Now, what should you snack on? Yes, there were a lot of correct answers of nuts, fruits, popcorns, roasted chanas, etc. But there were also a lot of answers on chips and bhujiyas, and biscuits were the most common. Breads were there. So whenever you're snacking, please make sure that you snack on something which is good in proteins and also lower in calories. So the best snacking option becomes like a bhuna hua chana or a handful of nuts, etc. Salt is the biggest culprit, and as I said, the two major culprits in Indian diet is salt and sugar. Salt, remember, only 5% of the salt which you are eating from your diet means your dal, roti, sabzi we are eating, only 5 to 6% is coming from there. 70% of the salt which we take is actually coming from your commercial processed foods. So when I take a packet of chips, yes, it has some calories, but beyond that it is loaded with salt. So salt is one of the biggest culprit, and sadly, as we are already the diabetes capital of the world, another, I think by 2030 India would have the maximum number of hypertensive patients in the world. So again and again, it has only to do with your eating pattern. The moment you reduce the consumption of salt, and the things like having sheikh kebabs and the shami kebabs, the processed meats are a very high form of salt. All your potato chips, your cheese spreads, your papads, your achar, your namkeens also have a lot of salt. This is, of course, I feel is very important for all of us to understand, because what happens is when we talk about immunity, we only think it's about diet. But these are the six important components which are very, very important. Exercise, which I will just talked about. Weight, I have already talked about how to maintain and what is your ideal weight. And of course, making sure that you get adequate sleep and reduce your stress. The nutrients, I think all of you know. I'm going to skip it. These are the four important nutrients: C, E, A, and D, which are the best form of your to build up on your immunity. So the next, of course, just 2 minutes, I will talk about gut health, because there is this saying that you are 80% of what you eat and 20 to 30% of what you exercise. But I like to add a line here that you are 100% of what your gut health is. So if your gut health is good, you are absolutely fit and fine. But if you have a poor gut health, probably all the underlying diseases would precipitate sooner or later. Now, when we talk about gut health, just two things to be remembered: prebiotics and probiotics. Prebiotics are the food for the good bacteria in your stomach. So the more you eat your vegetarian food, that means lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, they are your prebiotics. And probiotics are the live bacteria which is already present in the food. And where do we get it from? So my yogurt, dahi, is my best form of probiotic. Kefir, Yakult, of course, freely available, and all your fermented foods. The moment you fermented food and then make it the next day, the amount of probiotics in them increases exponentially. So, in addition to eating a very, very healthy diet, make sure that your gut health is also maintained, because that's the core to getting a good health also. I did speak about immunity, and one of the slides I did talk about your sleep. So, sleep is very important when you're looking at a good immunity and good health. And especially in today's generation, what we've seen, even in the younger children, we see there's a lot of imbalances in the sleep. And that's because, yes, probably because of the kind of lifestyle they're leading, but it also can be because of an imbalance of a hormone which is called serotonin. And serotonin is called a feel good hormone. So you can actually increase your serotonin levels, one, by a certain foods which I will just talk about, and also doing a lot of exercise. Every time you exercise, the body releases these feel good hormones which are called serotonin. So now I think there is another reason for all of us to exercise, because it will elevate your mood, and it also helps you in good sleep. So, as I was saying, that there are certain foods which can actually help you in getting uninterrupted sleep, or obviously, and also help you in your moods. So, that is called food which are present in the foods which are very rich in tryptophan, which is an amino acid. Now, tryptophan in the body helps to manufacture more and more serotonin, which is which is a hormone in the body. So, more the tryptophan you take, more is the serotonin in the body. And what are the sources of serotonin, tryptophan? First being milk. And you can actually now relate it very closely. I'm sure all of us have grown up by our mothers saying that, just before going off to sleep, have a glass of milk. So milk is very high source of tryptophan. So when you take good amount of milk at bedtime, your levels of serotonin are high, and hence you get a good adequate sleep. There are, of course, nuts and seeds. Fish is considered to be a very good source of tryptophan, and also certain fruits like bananas, etc. So this is how my balanced diet should look like, right? Start your day with good amounts of liquids. Your breakfast should have one source of protein. So if you're an vegetarian, you can take egg. If you're a vegetarian, you can have your milk. Of course, make sure you have your fruits and your nuts and seeds in between snacks, like a mid morning or a mid evening. Your lunch and dinner should have a source of protein for sure. So if you're a vegetarian, you look for dal or paneer. If you're a non-vegetarian, you can have your chicken or fish, or of course any of the other sources. And of course, make sure that you have a cup of milk at bedtime, and also incorporate a lot of liquids, especially in the form of charch or buttermilk or fresh juices, or even nimbu panis, etc., to make up for the total amount of fluids which you need. The last two slides, where of course, as I said, exercise is the core. So you are 20 to 30% of how much exercise or how active lifestyle you have. And remember, when we talk about physical activity, it can actually be divided into two parts. One is, which includes your aerobics and the weight bearing exercises, and the second is, which involves more of, which acts more on your emotions and at a deeper level, which is your yoga and meditation. Both are equally important, but both can't interchange or replace each other. So both have to be done in conjunction. Now, when we talk about your benefits of good exercise, I think 99% of us always assume that, if you're exercising, you're doing with the sole purpose of weight loss. But remember, besides that, we've just spoken about, if you want to have a good immune system, please start exercise. If you want to be more happy, start exercising, because every time you exercise, your body releases the enzyme, the hormone, which is called serotonin. Third, every time you exercise outdoors, probably you're getting your dose of vitamin D. So there are multiple reasons for us to exercise, not just weight loss, but to be healthy in total. And of course, there are a lot of researchers to say that when we exercise, it not only helps us to maintain your weight, but also helps us to increase our good cholesterol, which is called the HDL, helps us to control the blood sugar. So people who have insulin sensitive can actually benefit a lot from exercise, improves the immunity, which I've just spoken about, and of course, keep you in a very good mood, because you know that when you exercise, you release serotonin. And of course, it's very important, especially for the younger generation, to understand that when you do exercise, you have to do different types of exercise. So we actually break down the exercise into three types: the aerobics, which is, of course, which you're doing, basically doing it for your cardiovascular fitness, and just involves exercise like running, swimming, walking, cycling, etc. Along with this, we should all start weight training, which is just doing a little bit of weight lifts. And you really don't have to visit a gym for that. Even sitting at home, picking up your 1 liter bottles on either hands and just doing the weight lifts are good enough for you. And along with that, do some stretching, because that increases the blood flow and makes the body more flexible. So whenever you look at exercise, you should discipline it in such a way that all three modes of exercise can be incorporated into your life. So get moving. You really need to do about 30 to 60 minutes every day. It can be broken into 10 to 15 minutes and then spread over the day. But remember, you have to do it all 365 days in a year. So the way we say we eat and drink every day, similarly, you should be able to say that you are moving on a regular basis. So in the end, I would just like to end by saying that if you want to fix your health, you have to fix your diet first. But yes, not only diet, also along with that comes equally important is an active lifestyle, exercise, and of course, a good gut health. So thank you so much. I think I've exceeded a little bit more than the time, but I would be happy to take some questions now.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for such an enlightening session. I hope you can bear with my technical issues. Am I audible and visible to everybody?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So we'll start taking up the questions one by one. The first question is effect on immunity of being affected by dengue twice. This is from Nutrition Tuition World. What is the effect of on our immunity of being affected by dengue twice?
So not so much. Remember, immunity, when we talk about dengue, it is only related to the platelet counts. But definitely, yes, every time you fall sick, your the neutrophils and the TLC counts would be affected, and hence at certain point of time it will affect your immunity. So the only way, of course, to get dengue is only because of the mosquito. It's got nothing to do with the immunity being high or low. But every time we fall sick, our immunity takes a down step. So therefore, in general, you should work on eating healthy and making sure that you have a strong immunity.
Okay, ma'am. Next question is how to boost our immunity.
Okay.
How
So
to
as I
boost our
said,
immunity.
yeah, so there was one slide which I said there are 5 things which you have to make sure. One, eat right. And when we say about eating right, make sure there's enough proteins and of course certain vitamins which I just spoke about, vitamin C, vitamin D, E, and D. Besides that, sleep regularly. Sleep that have that uninterrupted sleep for minimum 7 to 8 hours, because that helps you to build up on your immunity. The third is of course control your weight. People who are obese have a lesser amount of immunity because we have more inflammatory markers like interleukin 6 and your the inflammatory markers like CRP levels are much higher. So obese people, whatever you eat or do, would have a lower amount of immunity. So controlling your weight is very, very important. Fourth is, of course, there are certain foods which are inflammatory in nature, like smoking, alcohol, etc., would definitely lower your immunity. And the last is, of course, make sure that you're exercising daily. So these are the 5 important things, not just diet, but your entire lifestyle, which will make your immunity strong or low.
Another question is anthropometric measurement important for detecting disease at any early stage by Nazia Khan?
Yeah. So as I said, when I talk about anthropometric measurements, it's not the BMI, but your waist circumference and your body fat percentage, which is a very, very important marker for detecting chronic lifestyle diseases like heart disease, diabetes, insulin resistance, PCOS can be easily detected. Because if you have more amount of fat, especially in the abdominal region, which is called adiposity, one is more prone to developing insulin resistance, and which is of course can precipitate into cardiac disease or diabetes or PCOS for sure.
Another question is does tea or coffee inhibit absorption of any other nutrient apart from iron?
So, especially caffeine inhibits the absorption of calcium to a great extent. So, tea, especially the tannin, is of course, as I just discussed, for your iron. So, tea and coffee for iron, and especially your especially your coffee for your calcium absorption also.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Can we eat fruits in breakfast?
You can, but what I would suggest is that make your fruits as your snacks. That makes it more important. That is a much healthier way to incorporate your fruits, because while you're very hungry in the mid morning and mid evening, and that's the time you're looking for some food, and these are things which you can carry with you. So ideally, rather than having it in your breakfast or with your major meal, the best time is of course to have it in between the meals, but there's nothing wrong if you're having it in the breakfast or with your major meals.
Okay, ma'am. What is the best alternative for egg in case of vegetarian?
Okay. So, as I said, for the vegetarian, the sources of proteins is your dals and your dairy products. The only thing what you have to do is make sure that every meal, which is your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you have a source of protein. So for you, if you're a vegetarian and you want to have proteins in the breakfast, it would be either a glass of milk, it can be a soya paneer or normal paneer, it can be sprouts, or it can be a chila, like a besan or a moong dal chila.
Okay, ma'am. And then there is another question. What is the effect of excessive consumption of fermented foods on our gut health or on our body?
So there have been no research, or there have been no study to say that excessive amount of fermented food can have an ill effect on the gut. We don't have a problem on that. And moreover, especially in a country like us, we do not consume so much of unfermented food. So going overboard would never be a problem in our case.
Okay, ma'am. Next question. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am. How should we manage our How can we manage our breakfast? What shall we eat in the breakfast to give us a boost of energy? Because many students they have early college, which results in intermediate fasting.
Yeah. So ideally, as I said, never leave for work or for college without eating a healthy or a sumptuous breakfast. So, the best thing which I tell everybody is to make a smoothie kind of thing. So you take your glass of milk, you can add some oats if it's there. You can add sattu, which is freely, there's no cooking required at all. So you can add some sattu into your milk. You can add some oats and keep it overnight and have it in the morning. You can put a banana into that and put some nuts like almonds and walnuts and just churn it and just have it like a shake. That is the easiest thing to do. If that is not possible, probably along with a glass of milk, even if you have a banana and go, that is also a very, very healthy breakfast. But of course, having a proper breakfast, like having your egg with a toast or having your egg with a roti, or if you're having a paratha with some sabzi or dahi, should be the ideal way. But if that's not possible, these are the quick fixes which you can do. Even having like a protein bars, which are now freely available, you can just take half a protein bar with a glass of milk and have that. That's like, if you're on the go, you can just consume that while you're traveling.
Is it okay to eat oats twice a day?
Oats is the best form of soluble fiber. So even if you're taking it in every meal, it should not cause any problem, because it's a good source of soluble fiber, and it also helps in weight reduction, good for lowering your cholesterols, etc. So there's no harm if you're able to take it twice. People usually don't consume it because they don't like the taste of it, but if you're able to take it, there's nothing wrong in having that.
Okay, ma'am. What's your take on COVID after effect, especially in case of CVD? COVID after effect in CVD.
So we know for sure now that the COVID people who've been affected with COVID, and especially the severe form of COVID, the heart muscles were being affected to a great extent. So specifically from my own experience working in the hospital, we do get to see there is an increase in the number of cardiac issues, increase in the number of patients coming into the hospitals with cardiac issues who never had a underlying history of cardiac problems. Specifically post COVID, the numbers have really increased. So yes, what we've seen is, one, COVID has had a direct impact on the increasing in the number of cardiac issues, and second, it has also affected the gut health. So the number of patients coming with IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, which is indigestion, constipation, loose motions, constant stomach ache, etc., has exponentially increased post the COVID. You are not audible. I can't hear
Sorry,
you.
ma'am. Uh, yes, ma'am. Am I audible now? Yes, ma'am. The question is that if we over exercise, then will it impact us adversely? So, what is the average exercise time?
Yeah. So ideally, all of us, if you're not into sports, or if you're not doing it for a particular purpose, then we should all be doing it for at least 30 to 45 minutes every day. Make sure you are able to do at least 10,000 steps, which is called the maintenance level, every day as a part of your regular activity. And again, as I said in the beginning, you don't need to do it all together. You can break it up into 2 to 3 times and do it through the day. That has a better impact rather than just doing it early in the morning or late in the evening and then probably being sedentary through the day. So that's very important. And even if you're hitting the gym and all, please gradually start it and then get into your level where you can be able to sustain it. Do not overdo it on the very first day, because we know that if you're doing it excessively, that also has ill effects. But yes, that does not take away the point from saying that exercising on a daily basis is mandatory for each one of us. You can choose the type of exercise you want, start gradually, then build up your stamina, and then go to a certain extent. But we all need to exercise in some form or the other on a daily basis.
Ma'am, here I have my own question. Like for people who are working, it may not be possible to exercise regularly, then what is the solution?
So as I said, it's not just walking on the street or walking on the park or running, etc., or joining a gym, which is important. Even while people who cannot go out, you can do some stretching exercises. You can do some weight strengthening exercises. As I said, just have some weights at home, do some ab exercises on a daily basis, do some muscle strengthening exercises, which are equally, in fact, they are more important nowadays rather than just walking or running on the street. So, but each one of us should be able to take out just half an hour from our entire day schedule and make sure that you at least do some exercise, whether indoors or outdoors, of course, is considered to be the best. But in case if you're not able to do that, even doing indoor exercise is considered to be equally important.
Ma'am, supposing if वो भी नहीं हो सकता है, तो like how many hours in a week we should do minimum then? This is for working professionals.
Yeah, so ideally, see the recommendations by WHO and by our own bodies. The recommendation is about to do about, even if you're doing 30 minutes 5 times in a week, is considered to be enough and is considered to be good. But we need to understand the kind of lifestyle we are all leading with there's so much of stress and the kind of eating pattern which we have. I personally feel that it should not be restricted to just 5 times in a week. We should be doing some amount of activity on a daily basis, all 365 days in a year.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Another question is that what kind of food should we eat to get relief from migraine?
What kind of fish?
Foods. Foods. What kind of foods
Food.
should we
Okay.
consume
So for
for relief
migraine,
from
yeah.
migraine?
Yeah,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
for migraine, there are different types of migraine which we have. Some of them are related to increased hypertension. So probably in those cases, we'll have to reduce the sodium. In some cases, we see the migraine is only because of dehydration. So the first line of treatment is, of course, to make sure that your body is hydrated all the time. So taking a lot of tea, coffee, etc. The third type of migraine, which we usually get to see by the neurologist, is where you need some kind of epinephrine, which actually helps in to increase the epinephrine. And of course, that is where the coffee, etc., will actually act as a stimulant. But in general, eating healthy, keeping yourself hydrated well, and of course, making sure that you're taking less of salt and the so called processed food is the ideal way which will help you with all types of migraines.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, another question is that can we consume junk foods every day, such as Chinese dishes?
No. The Chinese, sadly but truly, are the worst kind of junk foods which we have, because it's
I'm sure the
completely,
student loves Chinese. That's why
I know.
she's asking
And
this.
it's something which is freely available. But that is the worst kind of food one can have, because the whether we are talking about the noodles, which is all made with maida, which also has a lot of which is all refined carbohydrate. Even the soups and all which are generally available, or the soupy noodles which they have a lot of roux, or what we call maida in that, or arrowroot, which is again a refined cereal. So Chinese is generally not a very, very healthy food to be consumed. Also, they add a lot of salt, like Ajinomotos and the different kinds of sauces which are added. They are all very high on salt. So definitely Chinese is not a go-to option for a snack. Definitely, things like having a fruit, having a couple of nuts, having a popcorn, having a bhutta, reaching out to something like your protein bars and all, which you can keep it in your bag and carry, are something which is much, much better, especially for college students who are out the whole day.
Okay, ma'am. Next question is that what should we consume during our menstruation for a healthy blood flow?
Yeah. So again, there are a lot of foods which are considered to be very, very healthy. So one is, of course, most important is to make sure that you're adequately hydrated because there is a lot of blood flow, loss. So the body does become a little dehydrated. So one, make sure that you're adequately hydrated. Second, having warm fluids definitely help you a lot. Third, making sure that the food which are high on phytoestrogens, specifically things like soya, a lot of nuts and seeds, having berries, etc., really help you with a good menstrual flow. Also, people who have low iron content would definitely have a little problem during the menstrual cycle, and therefore you'll have to make sure that their intake of good iron foods and good protein foods will actually help them in the long run and having a good flow during their menstrual cycles.
Okay, ma'am. Next question is that how to maintain body weight when bones weigh more than the muscle mass?
It will not, it can never weigh more than the muscle mass. So your bone weight, usually, if you do a body fat analysis, which is done in the gym and in the hospitals also, what we usually get to see that the bone weight is somewhere between 3 to 5 kgs. That's the maximum which you have. It can go up to 6, 7, but never more than that. The fight is between your muscle mass and your fat percentage. So ideally, as I'm saying, so if somebody's around 60 kilos, the muscle mass should be of, and the muscle mass includes your water and the muscle and the protein together gives you the muscle mass, and the remaining is your fat in kgs. So specifically, if somebody is weighing around 60 kilos, I would say not more than 20 kilos should be fat. The rest, of course, 3 to 5 kilo becomes your bone weight, and the rest, about 30 to 40 kilos, should be your, ideally, your muscle mass. So more the muscle mass, better it is. Lesser the fat percentage or fat in kgs, the better it is. Bone weight, you can't do much, but as I said, it is usually between 3 to 5 kilos, can go up to 6 to 7 kgs, but never beyond that.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question is which foods help us in reducing our stomach acidity? Because nowadays many people are having this acid reflux problem.
So you'll have to find out what is the reason for acid reflux. Acidity is basically caused because of three important reasons. One, if there is too much of gap between your meals. Second, if the stress levels are very high, because that actually works at the enzyme level and more of the gastric acid is released in the stomach. And third is, of course, too much of smoking can also lead to acidity or gastritis. And fourth is having too much of painkillers or medications, that can also lead to. So if you're able to control these four things, that means eat small frequent meals. Second, make sure there is no smoking, reduce the amount of stress. Third is, of course, make sure that especially if you're taking these analgesic like painkillers, etc., that might cause a lot of acidity. Now, in terms of food, if somebody has acidity or gastric reflux, obviously things which are very, very fried foods should be avoided completely. Having foods at small frequent meals, especially like fruits and vegetables and dals and your normal, not very high masala, but normal masala food is absolutely fine. And concepts like not having citrus fruits, not having tomatoes, etc., is only done when they have an acute acid reflux attack, and not like a general statement for the entire, for all of them. So they can definitely go ahead and have the citrus fruits, they can have the tomatoes, etc. It's only when they have a very severe attack would that be restricted for a couple of days, but not as a general practice. But eating small frequent meal and having not too much of masalas and oil is
Thank you so
something which
much.
should be practiced. I think I lost you somewhere. Diksha, I think I lost you. Hello. Okay, so the next question I can see is how to maintain diabetes. Now, that is, of course, a complete lifestyle management. Um, of course, the diet plays a very important role, the kind of lifestyle you have, the amount of exercise you do. So, I would definitely request, I think this question has been posed by Pooja, that you must visit a dietitian because she will be able to explain you. It's not like a one line answer, and it is not the same for everybody. It has to be very, very individualized depending upon the years of diabetes the person has, what is the height, weight, what is the age of the person. So therefore you should consult a dietitian who will be able to help you out with this.
Yes, ma'am, very true. Like it cannot be answered so fast. You need a proper diet consultation for maintaining diabetes. Ma'am, one more question is that what kind of food should be avoided at the time of dinner?
The only thing which has to be done is that make sure that you have your dinner at least 2 to 3 hours before you sleep. That is the most important thing. You really don't have to obviously, you don't go overboard. So, the way to go about it is the breakfast should be the heaviest meal, followed by the lunch, and the dinner should be like a popper, it should be the lightest meal of the day, and it should be taken at least 2 to 3 hours before you sleep. That will help in better digestion and obviously prevent the obesity and the various other kinds of problems which we have by overeating at night. So if you just eat your dinner early and have a light dinner, that itself is considered to be the best practice.
One more question is that what kind of food should be consumed for osteopenia?
So osteoporosis and osteopenia are both the brothers and the sisters of calcium deficiency. Again, it's by the time somebody is being detected with osteopenia, it is probably a little too late, where the dietary intervention will function. But as I said, both osteopenia and osteoporosis, your intervention should start at early childhood and early adolescence. Only then would you be able to reap the benefits. But definitely, somebody having osteopenias and osteomalicias would be advised to take supplements, which is very, very important. And not just calcium supplements, but also supplements like glutathione, and having supplements like collagens, etc., are being now prescribed and these supplements do have an impact on the good bone health.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much for answering all the questions so patiently because I think this was the end of the questions we had. And I'm sure that listeners were actually, very nicely listening to your session. That's why they have so many questions. So I would like to
Thank
now
you.
end the session. Ma'am, is there anything you want to add?
Thank you so much. I was quite happy seeing the Google form. And of course, I went through all of them and I discussed it during my talk. But let me tell you, the audience who's listening over there is already quite an enlightened one. I just hope what they've mentioned in the Google form, they're also practicing in their daily life. And I think if that is being done, I think the purpose of this webinar to educate the population about healthy eating has been achieved. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you so much, Ritika ma'am, for such an enlightening session. Your expertise has really enriched us. Special thanks to all the audience as well for their presence and patience on a Sunday afternoon for this session. Thanks to our college principal, Dr. Atashi Karfa, for her unending support and guidance. Thanks to the Students' Welfare Committee convener, Dr. Sharmila Sarkar, for her advice and support in arranging the program. And thank you all the senior members of the Student Welfare Committee. Thank you, Dr. Ivy De, for your presence and support in this program. I think Ivy ma'am is still there listening to the session. She was even asking that whether we'll get a copy of this session. So I think I'll be able to save it. Uh, Special thanks to Shubham Datta, Assistant Professor, Department of English, for his help, advice, and for providing the technical support in conducting this webinar. Thanks to my family members for their unending support today, because especially my husband, because I had a huge technical issue. My computer had crashed down just before the session, and that's why I'm managing with my mobile and some handy laptop from somebody. So, last but not the least, thanks to God, because without which nothing is possible. So, thank you everybody so much. I think we'll just end the session.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratasha. I'm there. Okay.